Hi, Vikram.
Hi, Harsha. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great.
How are you?
Great. Doing well. I hope you guys also doing well.
Yes, thankfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, good to have you on. And once again, looking forward to a very nice, discussion about your photography and your work.
Yeah. Thanks.
So we
Thanks
are
for
having
having me.
quite
Yeah.
always a pleasure. And good to see that people are joining in. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, and for those who of you will be seeing this later on as well, welcome to Art Bite, Artburt's very own interview show, where we talk to promising and unique photographers and artists about their exhibits that they're currently running on our digital exhibit platform called Imaging. So, with that said, I will flip my camera around so that we can see the exhibit which Vikram has put up. It's called Film Fantastic, and I think that's a good point for us to um, bring in for introducing Vikram and his work. He is an avid naturalist, he's a photographer, wildlife photographer, blogger, writer, and a film photographer. And while I'm not going to go deep into explaining the concept of film photography, because I'm not somebody who is well versed in it, I would let Vikram talk about it. But what we definitely have is Vikram's passion for film photography and how he believes film photography is still alive and hasn't lost its race in the digital world. So, with that said, we can get started. And Vikram, I think, let me hold on. Let me just put the exhibit on slideshow so that the images run automatically in the background while we speak. And in case you need me to pause on any specific image, please do let me know. I can
Sure.
bring that
Sure.
image
Yeah.
in particular. So, with that, as I said, I mean, Vikram, I have primarily known you from a wildlife angle from the days where I used to do nature and wildlife photography. And when you talked about film photography, it was something very new to me. I mean, I had seen my parents do film photography, but by the time I grew up to handle a camera myself, films were obsolete, more or less, and it had become a digital age. So I think the first question that I can ask, or anything in that matter, is the first question that anybody would want to ask is, in the age of digital photography, why should we do film photography?
Right. Good question. Actually, I get that question quite often. But see, it's a question of a personal choice. Now, I'm not saying. I mean, I don't want to get into this. Is film better than digital, or is digital better than film debate? That is a totally irrelevant debate in my opinion. I mean, we are very lucky
Mm-hmm.
now in today's age that we have a choice. We can choose between digital and film. When I was growing up, we didn't have that choice. I mean, it was only film, obviously. Digital
Right.
hadn't come in at that point of time, and I cut my teeth on film photography. I mean, when I started photography, it was only film, so I only did film. And now, looking back, I consider myself lucky that I started with film because,
Mm-hmm.
and I also happened to be in a school that had a dark room, that had a photography teacher who himself was very keen on photography. You know, it was his passion. It was a so I trained under him. I mean, I was one of the many people in my school who did train under him. So I did a lot of dark room work, a lot of developing, a lot of printing, and that is what really got me into photography. Now, there are two ways of looking at it. Both film and digital have their pros and cons, like anything else. So it depends upon what you are looking for. What are you looking for? Now, for example, I shoot both, right? I shoot film and I shoot digital. I don't shoot only film or only digital. I do shoot both. Now, why? Now, as part of my job, I'm supposed to provide some content, right? Photographic content to the company I work for. So for that
Right.
work, I use digital because it's much easier. It's much faster, it's much easier. There's a turnaround time. I have to, produce the images quickly, and they need to be technically perfect, as perfect as it can be. it's for social media,
Right.
etc. It's a luxury resort company, so that certain amount of luxury has to come through all these factors. So for that, I find digital to be the best medium, right? Technically, I mean, digital is far superior. Let's say, I mean, I know this could be a controversial statement in film circles, but digital has its advantage as far as technical aspects come when it comes to megapixel sharpness, things like that. Dynamic range, things like that, and also the quick turnaround time. I can review my photograph immediately. I can make whatever corrections I need, and I can get
Right.
the final product out. I mean, extremely fast compared to film. So for those,
Right.
so for that kind of a work, I use digital because of its
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
obvious advantages. But for my personal work, I've now started. I've gone back to film. There are
Right.
many a lot of reasons for this. Uh, you see, in today's world, from Western, shall we say, point of view, or in today's world, Western would probably be not the right way to put it. We look for perfection, right?
Mm-hmm.
For us, beauty is perfection. It has to be perfect. Everything needs to be perfect. Yeah, that's why we have all this, various tools. Like take for example, beauty in say in the fashion world, right? Everything has to be perfect,
Mm-hmm.
flawless complexion, body perfect, the cloth. I mean, the clothes falling perfectly styled. Everything is all perfection.
Right.
Okay, so that is one worldview, shall we say? And then we have another worldview, or different worldviews in which we are not aiming for perfection, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You look for beauty in imperfection,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not imperfection. Sorry, you look for beauty which is not perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
when you're looking for perfection, digital, it's a no-brainer. Digital really works for you. But when you're looking for imperfection, then I personally prefer film. Now, I'm not saying that you can't achieve that perfection in film. You can. Before digital, all the fashion photography was done on film, and they were perfect as maybe
Mm.
the digital right now. But film
Mm.
somehow lends itself to this kind of uh, beauty in imperfection because we have very little control on film. I mean, we have control, but not as much as we have on digital. So you're not really 100% sure that you have the shot or it's come perfect, and you'll not know until another 3 weeks down the line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So these
Yeah.
are they say, the glorious uncertainties of cricket. So this is the glorious uncertainties
Mm-hmm.
of film, which adds a
Yes,
little
I
bit of
think.
excitement. Yeah, to the whole thing.
Sure. 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 I think one of the biggest draw factors for digital when it came out was this instant gratification. You immediately knew how your shot came out. And if need be, you had that room to go back and correct your shot and reshoot that. So that was one of the biggest boons, if not also a bane for the photographers of our generation, where we lost patience to wait for that 36 odd film reels shots to be clicked and then given to the processing. The result was instantaneous, and while it is good, it is also equally bad. It is lost, that's unthought as the whatever the mystery anticipation that we can leverage upon the film community, film processing or the film photography side.
Yes,
So
yes,
I
I know,
agree
but
with you on that.
yeah, yeah, but it had its advantages. You could really learn very quickly. You
Mm,
knew exactly what mistake you made, and you could really the learning process was speeded up. And it was
right,
also a
right,
lot
right.
cheaper. I mean, after the initial investment, it was a lot cheaper. Film is expensive. Every shot you take, every time you press that shutter, it costs you a lot of money. So you
Right.
really take your time, and you really only take what you really think you want to take. So
Right,
learning is a
right.
very expensive proposition when it comes to film. But with
Mm.
digital, it's much faster, much cheaper, much better. So you see, each has its own advantages and disadvantages. Yeah.
Right, right,
Now
right.
going back to this perfection, imperfection thing. Now, if you see all the some of the great photographers world over, who are really known for their photographs. If you look at their photographs, they are not. Most of them, a lot of them are not really, technically perfect. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they break the rules of composition. Some of them may not be really, what shall we say, uh, sharp. not really in focus, but still there's something about that photographs that really connect with people, and that's why they're so great. Now, and what do we mean by perfection? I mean, our concept of perfection keeps changing. Especially if you're in the fashion industry, you'll know that this thing of the perfect body keeps changing. Male and female, it keeps changing from
Yeah.
you see what was perfect, the perfect figure, say about 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and you see what is there now. You see there's total difference in body type. So perfection keeps changing, right? It's not something that is permanent. So why waste your time chasing after something that keeps changing time after time?
Right.
So now there is
Right.
the best example of this is there is one photographer called Nan Golding. I'm not sure if many people have heard about her. She used to shoot in the 80s, and there is this. She's well known for her work called The Ballad of Sexual Dependency. Now, if you see the photographs in that series, yeah, if you look at them individually, and you go and try and look, you'll find them that they're blurry, they're not really well composed, it's a very snapshot type stuff. Okay, technically they're not great, but there is something in those photographs that really gets you, So that's what I'm saying. Perfection is not everything. Perfection is actually immaterial. Yeah. So if you have that kind of a worldview, and if you want to pursue that kind of stuff, I'm not saying it can't be done in digital. It can be done in digital also. But I would recommend film. It's much
Right.
film lends itself to that kind of. It's a
It
different.
aligns well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different kind of worldview. Different kind of. It requires an intellectual shift, right, from what people are used to today. So that intellectual shift can be a little difficult, can be a little daunting, but I think it's worth experimenting with if you have that bent of mind.
Got it. So if I understand it right, I think the the main difference between digital and film is the ability to pixel manage in digital photography, which has made it so much more, if you can say, the choice tool for people who want pixel perfection. On the other hand, because you can't control a lot of aspects or parameters in the film world, it is fine to let go of that pixel perfection or the OCD compulsion and take things in what they are as they are. So I guess the stark change in the mentalities, if I understand it right, is what makes you choose between digital versus the film.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And also there is the Japanese have an aesthetic sense called wabi sabi, which is looking for beauty in imperfection. So if you're inclined that way, then film is the most wabi sabi photographers use film.
Right.
Because it kind of again, like I said, it matches it goes with that kind of worldview, that philosophy.
Got it. So in that context, I mean, what is the most significant change in our photographer's workflow when we shoot film versus when we are shooting on digital?
Yeah, see, right now in today's world, today's film photography, we have very little, even previously commercial work, we have very little control. The photographer has very little control once he takes the photograph. Right, once the roll is exposed, you send it off to the lab and it comes back. It's printed, it's developed, it's printed, it's back. Story over. You have no control on how that is processed, how that is printed, unless you do it yourself, which is a totally different ball game, totally different story. So you really have zero control beyond taking the photograph. Then it depends upon the lab, how good that guy is and how good a rapport you have with him. In the old days, you had this photo flash, right? They'd give you the roll in 2 hours' time. Yeah, you had no control, zero. If they made mistakes, they made mistakes. There's nothing you could do about it. So you had absolutely zero control. Now, also, you generally don't have any control because, again, you give it back to the lab. They will process it. And instead of printing it, they give you a scanned copy. Now, you get a JPEG file or you can get a RAW file also. Now, on that, you can take it into your photo editing software and make changes like you can do to, say, any normal JPEG. So that gives you a little more control. compared to,
Mm-hmm.
say, in the old days when there was no digital and you just dropped it off at Photo Flash and 2 hours later you got your stuff. You had no control. So now you have slightly more control. But if you want actual proper control, then you have to can do one of two things. You could either develop and print on your own, or you
Right.
can or you can take control of the scanning process.
Mm-hmm.
So when you scan the negative, then you have a lot of control. That negative is almost, I mean, for lack of a better comparison, like a raw file. So when you scan it yourself and you convert it into digital, then you have all the entire control on you with you. So then you can
Got it.
process like you process your digital file, your raw file.
Digital. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But otherwise, you
Right, right,
manage with a JPEG. I mean. So that is the
right.
major difference in. So basically, you need to get it right in camera as far as possible.
Got it, got it,
Unless
got it.
you want to set up a dark room of your own and start developing it. And right now, it's not possible in the sense that the chemicals are not available for color film. Yeah, in a amateur kind of way,
Mask.
yeah,
Yeah,
mass
got
way.
it.
You can do it for black and white. Yes, there's a company called Ilford which has come back with all the chemicals. It's available on Amazon, and so you can do the printing. I mean, you can do the developing of black and white at home. It's no big deal actually. It can be done, but the printing is a different. You don't get the printers now. You'll have to scan it. And
Got it,
scanning is
got
also
it.
not a problem. You can scan it with your digital camera, DSLR, or you can get better scanners. That depends on you. But when it comes to color, the developing has to be done in a lab.
Got it, got it. In fact, that brings one point closer to the question that I wanted to ask you. I mean, you did talk about scanning and getting these images as a digital copy, despite shooting film. So, in the digital age, even though we are shooting with film, the end product that we end up is not actually a physical photograph, but rather a digital copy. So, what are your thoughts on that particular aspect? I mean, what is the what do you think of having or holding a physical print of the image versus seeing it on the TV, whether it is shot from, say, a film or even a digital camera? How does that compare? And
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on that?
I think we have the best of both worlds now, right?
Mm,
A digital file is far more useful in today's world than a physical print. Right, when you especially, I mean, in today's age, digital age, you want to share it on Instagram, Facebook, through wherever, whatever, on the net. So, a digital file is extremely is very useful here. You can always print it later if you want. You print it for your own personal satisfaction and the things. A digital file is great. I mean, you can store it easier to store, easier to share. So I find nothing wrong in it. I mean, I think it's damn good. It makes life
What
much
is
easier
your
for.
preference, holding a physical print in hand or seeing a digital copy of it?
No, no,
I
right
think I
now
know the answer.
everything is right now digital, but I would like to print definitely. But unfortunately, these
Right.
days, not many people print their photographs, including me.
Mm, mm.
But,
Got it.
yeah, so we're not just because you're doing film doesn't mean you're against technology. You just use technology where it suits you.
Got it.
Yeah, so
Got it.
this
Well
is
said.
great. I mean, digital is great. It's great technology. It's great, very useful, very practical.
Mm,
I can share on Instagram. I can share my work wherever I want to. With the physical print,
understood.
I'd have had to have a. I mean, I can share it on. I can have a exhibition with you. I can't do that with a physical
Yeah.
print, right?
Right, right, right,
For
right.
physical print, I'll have to go hire uh, I'll have to hire a studio and this and that and all that.
Gallery, yeah, yeah,
Gallery
yeah.
and all. It's not practical. I mean, for people like me, I mean, we're not big photographers with big budgets. So digital has its
Right,
advantages. Yeah.
right, right. And
Just because the end product is a digital copy doesn't mean that the fun of film photography is lost. Yeah,
very nice to say that. Yeah,
it is the process that matters, not the end product. In
got it.
the
In
way
fact, it
I look at
opens
it,
up. Yeah.
I'm looking at the process of enjoying
Mm.
to take the photograph rather than the end result of the photograph. I mean, even if it comes out bad, it's okay. About that, at least I enjoy taking it.
Right. I mean, for those of us who in my generation, like I keep saying that, For those of us who have grown up with digital photography, it opens up a whole new ball game of unexplored territory, which can equally be, exciting and fruitful. And I think in these days of lockdown modes, I think it's a nice way for us to learn and on something old for a change rather than something new. And in that way, I think you strongly believe in that. In learning film photography will make us far more well-rounded, and we evolve much better as photographers, right? So you always believe film photography does that to a photographer. And why is that?
Yeah, right. Okay, so let me start by saying that this is my belief. Okay, it may not be true. I'm not saying that you can't be a better photographer by using digital, or you can't be, all these things can't be done by using digital. It's just that, in my opinion, I prefer film for for this. Now, why is the case? See, digital photography, what it has done is it has really increased the ease of use. Right, it's very, very simple now to take photographs. Yeah,
Right.
now you have animal eye focus. Something unheard
Huh.
of 3 years ago. Right. So technique. There's so much advancement in the techniques. Right. The technical part, that taking photographs has become very easy. Ease of use is, I mean, phenomenal. Not just ease of use, even the speed of use. You can
Right.
really take far 30 frames per second. That's one roll per second. When it
Right.
comes to 35 mm, I mean, it takes me 1.5 months to expose a roll of 36 shots on
Right.
film.
Right.
I can do it in 1 second if I have the right camera in digital. So ease of use and the speed of use, all this is now we take all this for granted. And another thing I'd like to say is that I think the biggest big game changer in photography in our generation, in the past 2-3 decades, is the camera phone. Yeah, everybody has the power to take a photograph in his hand. I mean, you're carrying your camera everywhere you go. You see anything,
Right.
just snap, take a shot, right? So what's happening
Everybody's a
now?
photographer now.
Everybody's a photographer, which is a good and a bad thing. I mean, you have tons of photographs, which is good. Anyway, we won't go into that right now. So, but see, what has happened is that very soon, I believe, that the camera phone, especially the camera phone, is going to replace our eyeballs, right? We're not going to look at things. We're going to look at it through a camera phone. We look at something, we take a photograph, then we look carefully at the photograph rather than looking at the subject. So that is the problem. That is where I see the issue. Photography, in the old days when we started photography, we were always told, photography will enable you to connect closely with your subject. You will spend more time observing the subject, looking at it, looking at
Right.
the light, looking at, it'll draw you closer to your subject. This ease of use and the speed of use has almost eliminated that.
Distance. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right.
I
You're
think
no
that's
longer
the concept of slow photography, right? That
correct. That is the
is
concept of
what
slow
slow.
photography. Yes. So that connect has gone. So once that connect goes, now I personally feel that once that connect has gone, then that empathy towards the subject, the understanding of your subject, all that is reflected in the end product. I mean, if you don't have empathy with the subject, if you don't have a connect, if you don't understand your subject properly, then your end result is not going to. All that is not going to come in the end result. It's not going to show. It may be technically
Right.
perfect, beautifully lit, everything may be sharp, dynamic range, etc. Blah blah blah. But that emotion will not be there. That is my belief. I may be wrong, but that is my belief. So uh, now there are many ways to slow down. Like you said, slow photography, right? So a lot of people have this is a movement, especially in art circles, to move away from using too much of technology and go back to the old ways. So in photography, you have it in food also. You have slow food, fast food, slow food. So similarly, you have slow photography. So slow photography, you take a couple of steps back. You're not interested. You take the focus away from the end product to the process. You want to enjoy
Right.
the process rather than look for
Enjoy the
perfection.
photograph.
Yeah,
Yeah.
enjoy then look for the end product. So you start spending more time. You slow down. Now, I'm not saying you can't do this with digital. You can do that with digital also. Yeah, you can stop reviewing your photographs. You can stop shooting in burst mode. You can do a lot of things in digital also to slow down. But I find film photography is my choice. Is the way I prefer to slow down my photography by going to film.
Got it. Got it. I think that's a very nice way. And what do you say? Temptation of reviewing our images on digital is always going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you switch
So
off
it has to be a
your
constant.
screen,
Yeah.
you'll still that thing is there in the back of your mind. I can review it and see it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So that
Good. Good. Good.
you can do it. I mean, if you have solid willpower and all, you can slow down using digital too. I mean, it's not possible. A lot of people have done that. I mean, a lot of people do that. But I prefer film because I'm familiar with film. I started off with film, and I like film, so I choose film. But like I said, I use film in my personal work, not in my we say semi-commercial stuff that I do for the company.
Right.
For that, I have to use digital.
Right.
The
And
job,
given that you, yeah, go ahead.
the job demands
Got it.
digital.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, given that you have used both digital and film, how was your first reaction, or what was your first reaction when you were introduced to the world of digital photography in the olden days when it was introduced as a groundbreaking technology? And do you still feel that same way towards digital?
No. Actually, when I first encountered digital, this was sometime in 2005, 6 or something like that. At that time, I was in Kabini, so I was doing mostly, 100% I was doing wildlife. I was shooting
Yeah.
on, at that time, I was shooting, film, but I was also shooting video on mini DV tape.
Right.
So I was doing a lot of video at that time. For 2 years, I was doing a lot of video on a mini DV, and then the digital came out, and INW came out, Indian Nature Watch. I'm sure everybody, I mean, most people here, naturalists
Right.
at least, have heard or know about Indian Nature Watch. So when Indian
Right.
Nature Watch, all this thing came out, then how do I post?
A
Uh,
film.
yeah, a film, a print on India Nature Watch, and also shooting. It didn't have any this thing for video. I couldn't even post video on. I mean, the internet was new to me, so
Right.
that's when my camcorder, which I was using at that time, it had a still mode also, right? It had a 3 megapixel still camera. So I started using
All
both.
right.
I would shoot and then I'd take a couple of shots. And then I'd see it at the back of the screen. I didn't know what to do with it. Okay, I didn't know what to do. I was scared that it'll disappear. It was not a physical product. I was not used to something which is not physical. So
Right.
it took some time, but then I got used to it. Then we immediately shifted to digital.
Digital
Again,
side.
like I said,
Right.
ease of all the advantages came in: ease of use, cheaper, etc., easier to share. What I had mentioned earlier. So all
Right.
those
Right.
benefits kicked in, and I did digital for a long time. Then again, for a brief period in about 2007, I think 7 or 8, I'm getting a little mixed up. I went back to film for a year or so, year and a half. I went back to film. Then again, I went back to digital, and now I'm again come back to film. So it's a journey. It's a process.
It's a cyclic journey, I would say.
Yeah. So
And now this time around, you have the role of film also as a channel that you are promoting. And for those of us who may not be aware, that's Vikram's Insta handle where he promotes film photography.
yeah.
So I guess, yeah,
So without a digital file, roll of film would not be possible.
right, exactly. It's the digital incarnation of the film.
Yeah. So you have a choice. Best of both worlds. Use what is good in every in everything. Take the good and run with it.
Right. That's actually a good way to look at it. I thought for a long time that people who were into film photography kind of hated or opposed digital photography. But I was very mistaken in that. I can clearly see that. And you see it more as a complementary asset towards the two sides of the photographic mediums, I would say. So that's a nice way for me to look at it. And
Yeah.
you.
Also, we have a tendency to, you have these so-called, you have some expert or shall we say whatever, who he makes a comment, who makes a statement saying film is superior to digital, and we all follow like a bunch of sheep. Or someone says that film is dead, right? It's the age of digital. Again, we follow them like sheep. We had to use our own judgment and decide for ourselves.
Right. How easy or difficult is it today to do film photography, Vikram, in the availability of, say, the film or even cameras?
No, the film is making a great comeback. Kodak, Ilford, all these companies that used to produce film are now have restarted producing. They had stopped. Now they started again. So film is available. Also, they are coming up with new types of film. Right? There's also a company called Lomography, which is coming out with some great stuff. Some of the old, the older emulsions and all, they're reintroducing that. You get paper, you get chemicals, you can develop print. I mean, it's really making a comeback. Film is available on Amazon. Old cameras are available on Amazon. Go to Amazon.in and type for old cameras. You'll get a whole lot of stuff. You can buy it. You can buy film there. It's available online. There's a lot of studios now in various places. Like Bangalore, we have 2 studios that do developing and printing. I mean, they give you the digital file, but they do developing of film. So it's really making a comeback. And there has always been a section of people who have always continued with film photography, parallelly with the digital work. So there's always been a community of enthusiasts, shall we say, who have continued with film. And this tribe is just increasing now. Especially in the West, it's made a real tremendous comeback.
Nice to hear that.
And in one India thing also, India is not far behind. A lot of people are using film. Only problem in India is sometimes you have to make do with what's available because the demand is not as much as in the West. So each film has its own characteristics. So sometimes you just have to make do with what is available. But apart from that, I think it's really making a great comeback. And
nice to hear.
Also another thing, things are these film cameras are not cheap. You'll be surprised. Yeah, some Leicas, the M series Leicas, for example, these are iconic cameras. It'll cost you 2.5 lakhs.
Wow.
Okay, it's as expensive as digital. Yeah, and then every time you take a photograph, it'll cost you money.
Right.
Yeah, each roll of 35 mm will cost you about $1,000. Cost you another $2,000 to develop. So 3,000 rupees for 30. You'll be lucky if you get 15 to 20 good shots.
Wow.
So you can do the math. It's not a cheap alternative.
It's more of a luxury vintage. It's more of a luxury vintage.
Yes. Okay. I mean, all cameras are not like us. You can get a good camera within 15,000-20,000 bucks. Yeah. So initial investment may not be much, but it's a recurring expenditure every time you take that photograph. You think twice actually now before you press that shutter. Really think twice because each shot costs you a lot of money.
Correct. And I think that's what also makes us more better photographer, like the way you said. I mean, if you think twice rather than just clicking point and shoot, you think and execute. That is what actually means or makes the difference between a shooter and a composer, I would say. I mean, you execute your shot
correctly, like
afterthought.
Yeah, like they used to say, I don't know, what is the difference between the U.S. Army and the British Army? This is the old saying. In the U.S. Army, they teach you to shoot first and think later. In the British Army, they teach you to think first and shoot later. So in film, you think first.
All right.
You think you get everything in line, then you shoot. In digital, you just shoot and hope for the best. Hope to strike to hit the target.
Yeah, that's what has spoiled our generation.
So that is, I mean, I'm generalizing, but you get what I mean.
Yes. So you are also doing this workshop with us on Artburt, trying to teach film photography for people who are interested in learning the ways of the old. So what can students expect to learn out of this class?
Yeah. While speaking to various other digital photographers and all, I find that a lot of people who are not used to film have a very apprehensive. They have seen. I mean, YouTube is full of these film photography channels, and they've seen a lot of these channels, and they want to get into film, but they're a little intimidated by all the the bells and whistles
Right.
of film photography. I mean, this loading the film, unloading the film, I mean, forwarding the film, all these kind of mechanical stuff, and then the technicalities of how each film is different. They're used to one sensor, and
Right.
uh, and then you can change a lot of things in this. Like you have a lot of control over your ISOs, for example, which you don't have in
Right.
film. I mean, you buy a film of a fixed ISO, so you have to use for the next
Right. Right.
36 shots or whatever. You're stuck with that ISO. So they
Mm.
feel a little intimidated. They don't understand the whole thing properly, even though they want to get into it. And so they're hesitant to get into it. So this class is just basically to demystify film photography by starting from the basics. And basically at the end of this, end of the class, the aim is that a person who wants to start film photography will feel confident enough to pick up a film camera and start shooting.
Super. Super.
It's a
Super.
basic course just to understand, explain the basics, and to demystify the
Right.
thing, and remove this fear of film photography. That
Film
is the
photography.
basic idea of the course. It's not a very advanced course. It's an introductionary course, so that it explains to you the basics, and at the end of it, it'll give you enough confidence to pick up your camera and start shooting. We had
Right.
actually,
Right.
as we had planned a physical event also, where I would show you physically, exactly, practically how to do, but unfortunately, with the current situation, that's not possible. Maybe we can do that some other time. Yeah.
Right. 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 At least the introduction and breaking the stigmas or stereotypes is something that you aim to cover in the introduction to film photography, which uh, we want to emphasize on the introduction part to
Correct.
the
The
film photography.
fundamentals, yeah. The
Yeah,
fundamentals,
fundamental.
yeah. So without an understanding of the fundamentals, it's very difficult for anything, not just photography.
Right. Right,
So,
right, right. And this
yeah.
is an online class that can be that you'll be hosting on the 23rd of May.
Correct.
And for those of you who are interested in joining the session, you can go on to our website, artburt.com /film, or you can even go to the Imagen application and tap the buy button on the exhibit, and or even scan this from the TV to land on the film photography page. If all things fail, you can always contact either me or Vikram to set you up for the film photography class. So, with that said, I mean, I think it was a nice introduction in itself, introduction to the introduction, I can call, to the film photography world. And I've been very excited about the film photography myself from a very long time. And film has been that distant beast which I never actually had a chance to get close to. And like you rightly put, always been intimidated, always worried about the umpteen number of things that could go wrong. But I think I'm better prepared to take those things that can go wrong in a much better frame of mind and take it for what it is, which I think is characteristic of what you say is in the film world. So with that said, I think it's been very nice speaking to you, Vikram. Thank you so very much for coming yet again on to our Art Bite session. And it's always a pleasure to speak to you on your different approaches for photography.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, Asha.
Yeah. Thank you so very much. And as I said again, for those of you who may want to consider joining us, or rather joining Vikram on the introduction to film photography, please feel free to reach out either to me or Vikram, or our website artburt.com/film is always there to sign up on. Well, thank you so very much. Hope everybody stays safe during these testing times. It's not easy, but things like this can get our minds off, and an active mind is always a happy mind, I would say. So, in this time, let us look at learning something old to uh, get our mind occupied, and let's all stay safe. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Vikram.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.